Alrighty then, it is a gloomy, rainy day at the Marsh Mouse. The tide had come into the yard because it was one of those super tides, a king tide. You can see where it went. So, what better day to clean out the chest freezer and the other two freezers to do some canning, because canning ain't hard. Okay, let's stock our pantry shelves. Today, I'm doing chicken breast and also gonna get some beef broth going. Can't beat it. Rainy day, let's get to canning. Oh yeah. 60 degrees, I don't dig it. So I have dug deep into the chest freezer and I've got this many chicken breast in sucky bags so I don't have to worry about freezer burn, and I'm gonna can those. But we're also gonna get a big pot of beef broth going from my saved beef bones and my stock bags of vegetables. So let's do this, oh yeah. So the first thing I do is set out my little area that I'm gonna put my jars to process, undisturbed, unmolested for 24 hours. And I put a towel over this and then I cover it with wax paper so that when I can something like tomato sauce, it doesn't look like a murder scene or I've been bleeding all over the kitchen on the top of the towels. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I've got my lovely 4 jars, we call it dish towel, okay? Covered it with wax paper so my jars now have somewhere to go. I'm digging it. I've also gone to the book for my chicken breast raw pack. And remember, in 2019, they changed the head space from 1 inch to 1 1/4 inch head space. Because this is no bone, it's gonna process 75 minutes. And I'm writing down my vent start time and my processing time. So here is my setup. And the first thing I'm gonna be doing is the chicken breast that I still need to chop up into little chunks to put in my jars to raw pack boneless chicken. So I have my 4 jar lids in a sleeve. I've got my little pot of water that I'll put on to bring to a boil. I have got my Pokey Joe debubbler, my funnel, and my magic wand, which lets me reach into that pot and pull out that lid. And I've got my jar lifter. So I use vinegar. Where's my hand? There it is. And I have me some little paper towels here to wipe the rim of my jar. When I store my jars, I do them just like this on my wooden pantry shelves. So because this was run through my dishwasher, I didn't stick my hands all up in it. I know that this is clean and sanitary. So it is not hard to get organized. If you have everything where you need it, you won't get distracted. And don't forget, you can set your little checklist from 4 jars right on the top. My pressure canner is ready, and there is a line inside your canner that you can feel to tell you where the water goes. If not, in the front of your manual, it tells you how many quarts to put in there. I have already checked my underside of the lid. I've checked that the vent lock cover is tight underneath it. I know my pressure gauge is fine, but I will be using the weighted gauge. In slang terms, people call it the jiggler, where it will rock for me and I can hear it. But there is nothing wrong with using the regulator, the original thing that came with your canner. All this is more convenient for some of us, but it doesn't make a difference which one you have. I'm starting out with a super clean countertop, super clean hands, and now I'm gonna put my lids, known to hillbilly as flats, but they're really lids, with their sweet little compound from 4 jars, and I do them 1 flat, 1 up, 1 flat. So then it's easier to get out with my magic wand and they don't stick together. So once I have my chicken breast chopped up, I'll put this on my stove, bring it to a boil, then let it sit there. I'll turn it off, and then that compound is ready to stick to the rim of my jar. There's a lot of stuff happening in this kitchen today. Oh, Vern don't need a sandwich because Vern is on the loose, and everybody knows that means husband interrupt us because it's raining. Brother ain't outside. This is never good for us, but oh well. Alrighty, so I am geared up to begin opening my packages of my chicken, and I am choosing to wear gloves. I always do when I handle raw pork, but from fishing, crabbing, and work, my hands is toe up. Toe up. When you are doing those crab nets up and down in the water, my goodness, what a mess. But I got the winter to recover. And for those of you who are new, yes, indeed, I do have a head. I simply choose to show you what I'm doing, because when I watch a video, I like to see what people is doing, okay? So I get my little funnel on there. It's clean. We already know that the rims of our jars are good because when we take them out the dishwasher, Vern or I, we feel around on the jars. Because y'all know I call this a holy vessel, right? I never stick a metal tool in it. That is why they give us plastic implements, okay? So I gotta open these. Need my sizzlers to make the snippy snip. Then I will sanitize them. And this trash will go out today. Ha! This is January of 2020. Oh yeah. And as y'all know, before I put things in my sucky machine, I wrap them in wax paper. Then it doesn't suck up any moisture, harming my machine. Any of the little chunks of fat that are on here will be nothing but flavor. If I find something difficult on it, I'll discard it, throw it in my marsh. Get your knife sharp. You will cut yourself with a dull knife. Excuse me. The two storms that moved up through the North and the Atlantic brought nothing but juniper to me from Florida, which is one of the few things I am allergic to. And we had already passed our juniper stage here, but alas, didn't bring me any rain, any wind, any difficulty, but it brought me the juniper. Like, I don't like that. So I'm gonna pull that out. Chunk it on my paper plate. I'm gonna dump it out in the marsh when the tide is low for my little mud mummies and greenies to come and eat, and of course the crabs. So, you want little chunks? I got big old Gorilla Man hands. Get our jar, goes right in there. Everything you need to use needs to be clean. You're not gonna shove this in here and compress the heck out of it, okay? So let's see if we can find our thing that showed us how much this one was. No, I didn't write the weight. So this is gonna hold more than one of that large chicken breast. So all we gonna do, open us another package. Let's get this one. So I freeze mine in the sucky bags. They won't get any freezer burn. This ain't nobody need to waste food as expensive as everything is, and how difficult it was in 2020 to even find chicken. I must have canned 200 jars of pork butt because that was all they had in the stores. I was like, well, bless you little fat pigs. So chunky monkey. If I were doing hot pack, I would be doing this at my stove. Instead, I've moved over my little pot of the 4 jars lids that I brought to a boil, then turned off. So we know that we wiped the rim of this jar. So now we're gonna use our magic wand, okay? And put that lid hot. Try not to get things funkadelic. Okay, so There is our lid. Here is our ring. I use the limp wrist method because you make it finger tight. This is not hot because it's cold pack. Till I cannot, I would have to crank, okay? So this is gonna go straight in the canner, and the canner is cold because this jar is cold. I think mine holds 8 pints. Let's get another. Got our Poke Joe. Got some chunks of our chicken. And you know the song Hungry Eyes? I had old lady eyes because I pulled out some chicken that I had already seasoned in the sucky bag for Vern. But he's now under the house, so he will be none the wiser, but it's gonna have some pepper in it. You do not have to add salt. It is for flavor. Salt has nothing to do with preserving when you're canning. So what's our headspace? 1 1/4 inches. So we Poke Joe'd some, get any air bubbles out, but I don't want to shove this with some machismo in there. Don't need no macho. Okay. So here's our last 4. I've checked my 1 1/4 inch headspace. I'm wiping my rim. I got a Poke Joe again. That is definitely 1 1/4. A little more vinaigrette. Vinegar. All right. Get our magic wand. Get our lids. Lids, Suburban Hillbilly lids. I had one trusty rusty ring that I had to throw away. It didn't want to go on well. You can always tell when they're done. Fingertip tight. Going for bands, rings. Limp wrist, fingertip tight. Limp wrist, fingertip tight. That's what works for me. Everybody finds their own groove. Okay, and what works for you. Limp wrist. Oops, that went wrong. One more time. Got it. Okay, now these are going in the canner. Here are my 8 pints. My beef stock is simmering long. Now I'm going to get the lid on, turn it up, the heat under it. It's on my super burner. And then we'll proceed from there. It ain't hard. And these 4-jar lids do not fail. Love them. And Presto has little arrows for you. Can't really mess it up. Sometimes it's harder to get on than other times. And yes, it's loud, so it's seated. I've got a V here and a V there. Squish them together. Oh, I dropped my weighted gauge. Now, I sometimes struggle to center my canner on my burner, but I eventually figure it out. All right, so I'm gonna turn the heat on underneath it. And please remember, this was a raw pack. The chicken was cold, so I did not heat up the jars, but they were already sanitized. And so now, when you do a hot pack, it'll come up to your vent lock cover, I used to call it your petcock, but it's not. Will come up very quickly when it's hot. Takes much longer with cold jars in it. So mine holds 8 pints. I've got 8 pints in it, and I didn't have any chicken left over to have to throw away. I just cut off some fatty pieces. Easy peasy. So my canner is heating up. I look around the side of it. I have no drippy drips, so my gasket seems to be fine. I've got my vent hood on, and my vent lock cover is going to start to jiggle, jiggle, jiggle till it raises itself up. So as you can see, mine is a wee bit of a spitter. That's what it does. My vent lock cover is not on upside down. There was a 2-year period where Presto experimented with vent lock covers, so mine's correct. It's just a little bit weird, but I'm weird, so I don't care. Had it since 2012, still going strong. Got no problems, except it's a little bit spitter. That's all. I just wipe up the dribble. It ain't hard, it's canning. And right here is our beef broth simmering along. So we are not timing for the 10 minutes of venting because the vent lock cover is not up. When it's up, then we begin our 10 minutes. On my particular one, Presto, when this comes up, I'll see that steady stream. See how the water builds up a little bit? Ain't hard, ain't no big deal. So my previous canners were Miros, I believe, and they didn't do this jiggle jiggle spit spit thing. So the first time I ran this canner and it was doing its little bubble action, okay, and this starts making a lot of noise, it kind of freaked me out. So I went straight to my manual. I don't know this, but you can call Presto. They answer the phone. You can call Ball. They answer the phone. It's like the Butterball people around the holidays. They have a 1-800 call with questions. That stuff's real. And they offer you support and help. And the Presto people were nice enough to go to one of my videos and said, yep, that was one of the new vent lock covers. Absolutely safe, all good. So here's the jiggle, jiggle, jiggle thing it does. It seemed quite noisy to me after having Miros. Burns on the move, having lunch. Lord help us all. Husband, interrupt us. It's a thing. It's a real thing. Y'all know. Man, it's on a schedule. The front of your manual and the front of your safe canning books, your approved recipes, tell you exactly what's happening. But to me, I go with the process. This thing was designed to do this, but if you want to learn about the science behind it, because they've done the science for us, you can look in the front of your manual or your book and it'll tell you exactly what's happening with the removal of air from your canner. I just have the small Presto, not the 2-layer, because it's just the 2 old folks here. There we go. Now the vent lock cover is up. I'm going to write down the time, set my timer to 10 minutes. You may not be able to see it, but there is a steady stream. And now we vent for 10 minutes. So I have my cheat sheet here. I have written down the time that it started, and I've got my timer set. As much as you'll be tempted to do it, do not try to force that vent lock cover up before it's time. It's part of the safe canning process that comes up by itself. I have watched YouTube and TikTok videos where they'll just kind of take a little butter knife and pop that thing right up. I ain't doing that. You shouldn't do that. I need to know how I saved money on this chicken breast. These are 8 pints. It's over 8 pounds. Each one holds a little over a pound of chicken, and this is boneless, skinless chicken breast. I need to know this product is safe. So let's see if I can get a better view to show you the vent stream. So there is my vent. You can sort of kind of maybe see it, but it is a steady stream. So I need that to happen for 10 minutes. It ain't hard. It just ain't hard. So remember, I'm using the weighted gauge. It's actually in your books. That's the dial gauge. I'm using the weighted gauge. My area is 10 pounds. The apparatus itself is 5 pounds. That ring makes it 10. If you are in an area with 15 pounds of pressure, you would have a separate ring that you put on. Of course, it came with 2, but I'm 10-pound area. So we have about 1 more minute to go, and our 10-minute vent time is over. Then I put this on that vent pipe, and then we let it come up to 10, 11 pounds, and then I start my timer for 75 minutes. It ain't hard, you're just following the rules. There goes our timer. We put our weighted gauge on. In your case, you would have the regulator. If you have a Presto, many other ones, it's a regulator also. It's a little black. It's fatter than that, and it's black. So, now, I am not ready to time my 75 minutes. So here is what your regulator looks like that came with your Presto. I simply replace that with the weighted gauge. So, and again, as I said, the front of your canner shows you everything you need to know. Always keep a manual. If you want to learn about all the science of it, listen, I done paid for the science when I bought that thing. So it gives you all kind of information, step by step. Take your time. Ain't hard. So let's take a look. Dial gauge is coming up, but I don't have to really pay attention to that. And Vern makes sure that is accurate by, he does the little test that Extension Services used to do that sadly they don't do anymore. Okay, so how are we supposed to know if our gauge is still good? So that is also part of the reason I went to the weighted gauge. All right, so when it comes up to, and I start doing the little hula dance, as Lisa at Sutton Days refers to it, and notice my vent lock cover is still up. And I would not have come up like this if I had any leak of my gauge around it. It just would not be able to have popped this up and held it. So it ain't hard, it's just cannon. But it climbs very rapidly. And I do have, and you should also put your vent hood on. There was a lot of steam, and of course that's humidity inside your house. I'm in the South, ain't nobody need no mold, okay? Ain't got time for mold nor mildew. Thank you. So my time starts now. I'll set my timer for an hour, and then I'll add 15 minutes. My little hula fella is starting to do his jig, and I have to do a little bit of pot swap around because I have my canner on my super burner. Alrighty then, our 75 minutes is up, and the only thing I do is turn off the fire beneath this canner. I do not remove the weighted gauge. I don't do anything. I'm going to let that dial gauge drop to 0 on its own, and the vent lock cover to drop on its own. And after that, I'm going to wait between 5 and 10 minutes before I take the lid off and remove with my jar lifter the 8 pints of chicken that's in there. And then I'll set them on their resting place for 24 hours. So nothing happens except turning off the heat. So not hard. Cannon is so not hard.